You all can see this, see the notebook that I'm sharing. Is it visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So before I begin the penultimate chapter, I asked you all to go back and read till where we have completed the syllabus. So any doubts in that? Anyone? Anything you want to ask? Anything that you could not understand, you want me to just go over again? I asked you all to go back and read the nutrient cycling, especially for, I think, carbon and phosphorus. Did you do that? It's the last part of the chapter, one paragraph each. It's just like nitrogen cycle or any other cycle in nature. You just have to know from which organism or which population or which abiotic factor to the next where that nutrient cycles in the ecosystem. So any doubt regarding that? No doubts? Okay. Okay, so let's begin with today's chapter. So we're going to, okay, so first of all, anyone from whose syllabus any part of this chapter is deleted or omitted? Please let me know right now. Anyone who has any part deleted? No. Yeah, please.
No, sir, nothing is deleted.
Yeah, because this, and even if anything was deleted, I would encourage you all to, because this chapter is not a very big one, and it's broadly divided into two parts. As it says, one is biodiversity, and the other part is the conservation of biodiversity. So there are certain things which can be asked as MCQ from this chapter. Like this, along with the population growth models, is an important chapter from this unit. Okay. Okay, so let's begin. So first thing first, as the chapter's name is biodiversity and conservation. So what do we understand by the term biodiversity? As I always say, let's begin with the terminology itself. So what is biodiversity? It has two words, bio and diversity. Both are, I think, now familiar to you. Anyone would like to try? So one MCQ that you should just remember, which has come from this chapter, is it was not a experimental biologist or a ecologist who coined this term biodiversity. It was a sociobiologist. So who are sociobiologists? So sociobiologists are those who study or look at the social interaction and the social architecture of biological systems. So organisms cannot survive even if they are, so there can be solitary organisms or there can be social organisms, but both of them cannot survive without interacting with the environment. So they live in groups or they live alone. That decides their solitary behavior or social behavior. But even if someone is solitary animal, it has to depend on other abiotic as well as, most importantly, biotic factors to get food, like food, and which is, or nutrition, shelter, and a lot of other things. So biodiversity was popularized or used heavily by a sociobiologist called Edward Wilson. Okay, just know this. And what do we understand by this term? What is biodiversity? Yes, now anyone would like to try? So what is the word? You can just do the word dissection, bio and diversity, and you will get to the definition. Make your own definitions. Don't remember, because I told you in the beginning, and we are heading towards finishing the syllabus, but you should know that all the 15 chapters that we have studied till now, you are not going to remember each and everything, you know, in your head. Even I don't remember each and everything in my head all the time. Whenever it comes, we recollect certain things from our memory, but everyone is not a pen drive or a hard drive, so everyone cannot put every knowledge or every piece of information, every definition right there. So what instead we should keep in our mind is some common concepts or logic through which we have to go ahead in education. So about definitions, understand the word, try to understand the concept and make your own definition. So how will you define? If I ask you, do you understand this term at all, or is it a very alien term? Has this chapter started, finished, not yet started in your schools?
Going on.
Going on. So the first thing they should have told you is what is biodiversity, correct? So what did they tell you? So it should be fresh. If it is going on, you should be, I expect some participation from you now. No pressures, just participation. So what did they tell you? What did your teachers tell you? What did you ask about this? Why do we study all these things? Again, some things seems important, for us. Things like biotechnology may seem important. Okay, it's giving us something. Why to study biodiversity, a term which we are not aware of? Come on, don't hesitate. All of you are smart. You're just very, very shy, I think, which is okay. But since no one know, like I don't know where you live, or I'm not going to come to your school and say, oh, this person could not answer in my class. It's okay. Even if I could, it's okay. So bio means?
Life.
Perfect. Diversity means?
Different.
Diversity.
Variety.
Yes, diversity means variety. Diversity means, let's start with variety. Very good. So what does biodiversity means?
Various varieties of living organisms.
Exactly. Do you see this? Is this true, or it is just a made up concept? Do you see variety around you for living organisms?
Yes.
So you know already what we are going to study about. So this chapter is not going to be hard anyways. You don't know how recombinant DNA is synthesized. You don't know how human physiology works inside. You don't see it every day in front of your eyes. You don't know how your immune system fights the bacteria. You can't see it happening. But this is something you all see around you. So you said, yes, you have seen biodiversity. So tell me, where have you seen biodiversity? What diversity, what variety have you seen? Any one example? Mm-hmm. Come again.
In the zoo, we see a lot of living organisms.
What are those lot of living organisms? How many living organisms do you see in your home, in your house? Or around your house? Because we don't live in forests. So when you say, I see a lot of living organism around me, what do you mean by that?
Like birds, plants.
Like birds. Okay. So birds, plants, and Go on. You just see birds and plants around you? Come on, because when you'll answer this, I'll add a layer to this question. If you're not answering, then there are two ways of teaching and studying. One is the boring one. Don't push me towards that. You know, even if it is the last part of the last chapter, I would like to engage.
Insects.
Insects, perfect. We see a lot of insects around us. Okay, and no animals? No animals you see around you. Just bird, plants, and insects.
Animals.
Yeah, of course, you must be seeing animals, right? Okay. I think I'll not test your more. But you see birds, plants, insects, and animals. Don't you see variety among these categories that you have mentioned just now? Or do you see just bird? All birds are just like the same. All plants are just like the same. Because all birds are, I think they are like the same, right? What do you think? They all have a head, a beak, two wings, and a tail, two legs on which they walk. What's the difference between birds? Is there a variety? Is there a diversity among birds as well?
Yes.
Yes. How? What is the difference?
No shapes.
Shape, size, yeah, feeding habits. Everything is different between birds. They just look like they are, if you have to draw a bird, you will say they have a beak, they have a head, they have eyes, hair, and then they have wings, they have legs. The point is, every bird has a different feeding habit. If you're talking about crows, crows are omnivorous. If you talk about some other birds, they are insectivorous. If you talk about kingfishers, they can be carnivorous. They are carnivorous. They eat other fish, and even they can eat other smaller animals. Okay. So birds also have a lot of diversity. So does plants have. Trees, shrubs, herbs, everything around you, creepers, climbers. There are all different kind of plants. Insects, insects is one of the biggest. Arthropoda is the biggest phylum, correct? That you studied in class 11th. So insects make the huge diversity on planet Earth. Animals around you, cat, dogs, if you have cattle, camels, cows, buffaloes, goats, there are all kinds of animals not around us and in general in the nature. So if I ask you to define biodiversity on the basis of whatever you just told me, will you be able to define it? So there is one more word for variety, which we use in biology, and that is called heterogeneity. Okay. So we define biodiversity as, write down, the immense heterogeneity and immense means it really is immense. There is enormous heterogeneity, enormous types of animals, number of animals and plants. So immense heterogeneity of living organisms. That exist living organisms that exist in the biosphere. Okay, and this is at the biosphere is known as biodiversity. Now this heterogeneity or this immense heterogeneity is present at all levels of life. So not just organismal level, we were talking about some organisms above. So at organismal level, there is a lot of heterogeneity. it is also at the cellular level. Within the same organism, you see a lot of diversity of living cells, right? Taking an example of human, from tip of our head to tip of the toe, there are different kinds of cells performing different functions. And these cells are also living, correct? So
Yes.
and also not just that, within each cell, each type of cell, if you take a neuron, so within a neuron also, there is a great diversity of macromolecules, proteins, carbohydrates, and the structures that make up that cell, correct? So all these may not be able to exist independently as organisms, but they are a part of this biosphere, and they also contribute to the diversity in the living system. Okay. But when we study biodiversity from the perspective of conserving it, we mostly study at organismal level, but to know, you should be aware that diversity is also at genetic level, species level, and then it goes to the ecosystem level as well. So all levels of life, and some of it, I'll start with the most important levels that we are going to study. We are not going to study macromolecular because it's not possible to study in one single life all the different kind of molecules, proteins, genes that you have inside a single cell. Forget about 2 or 3 types of cell. Forget about all the type of cells that we have in our body. So all this knowledge accumulated over hundreds of years. And even if you pick one protein, people just keep doing research on a single protein for the whole of their life. One protein and finding its function sometimes is the PhD thesis of, or a research of one scientist's life. So we are just going to take the most important, which are relevant at your level to study, which first is genetic diversity. And I hope you understand now what do I mean by genetic diversity after studying the whole genetics unit. What is genetic diversity? So when I say diversity, you know that when I say genetic diversity, will I be comparing a human with a mouse, or will I be comparing 2 humans to study genetic diversity?
2 humans.
Yeah, because human and mouse, of course, is going to be very diverse genetically, but even between 2 individuals of the same species, there is genetic diversity, which comes because of different environmental exposures. Okay, so plants, the same plant, when it grows in 2 different conditions, they have a lot of genetic diversity. Okay, so for example, rice is a plant, and in the biotechnology, the chapter biotechnology, we realize that we can make different varieties of rice, some of which are vitamin rich, magnesium rich, iron rich varieties. So that there are more than 50 to 55,000 varieties of rice, which are genetic different varieties of rice only in India. I'm not only talking about the world, but only in India we have so much of diversity, genetic diversity in one single plant, which is rice. Okay. Similarly, we have more than 1,000 varieties of mango. Okay. So mango is all are, we call mango, right? But that there are different varieties of mango, and they differ in their genetics. They also differ in their phenotype, correct? But they all are mango. Make sense? Yes or no? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So write down genetic diversity. Even a single species, can show very high genetic diversity can show very high genetic diversity in different geographical distributions. Okay. And some of the important examples are rice varieties and mango varieties. Yeah. This is the first. What could be another type of diversity? So first, within the same species, there is genetical diversity. Now we come one step up and we see species diversity itself. Okay. Species diversity. So write down. There is a great species diversity at ecosystem level. There is a great species diversity at the ecosystem level. In the same geographical distribution. Okay, so take any one place. For example, if you take a desert, if you take forest, rainforests, or suburb marshy forests, India has a lot of diversity richness, especially in regions of Eastern Ghat, Western Ghats, Sundarbans, and Himalayas. So if you take the diversity of amphibians in any one of these places that I mentioned, for example, if you take diversity in the Eastern Ghats, you will find there's a great diversity of amphibians. Okay, so for example, you can write down. And some places, so if there are two kind of places which can hold both reptiles and amphibians. So amphibians mainly live in regions which are wet, because they depend on water to complete their life cycle, to lay their eggs. So you will not find much amphibians in arid or dry regions, but you can find reptiles there. For example, in a desert, you will not find an amphibian, but you will find lots of reptiles. But talking about wet areas like Eastern Ghat and Western Ghat, there also you will find that the richness of species of amphibians can be greater in one place than the other. So that's called species diversity. Okay, is that clear, everyone? So, so as an example, the Western Ghat of India has a large number of amphibian species. Okay. Is that clear? Is it understood? Species diversity.
Yes.
Then we come one level up. So you have to start from genetical level within the same species, then come to the ecological level, ecosystem level. Then you see diversity within the same within the species. Then we come to the ecological level and we look at the ecosystem or ecological diversity. Okay. So what do we understand by ecological diversity? Is that even at the level of ecosystem, it's not like one place will have just one kind of ecosystem. Taking an example of India, India is a very diverse. It has 9 biodiversity hotspots, which is like very great, very big a number for one country. So India has almost everything that you can look for. India has Himalayas to the north, which has the species of animals and plants that live in ice or glacier. So we have glaciers in India. We have desert, the Thar desert of Rajasthan. We have grasslands. We have plains near the northern plains. We have Deccan Plateau. We have Eastern Ghat, Western Ghat rainforests. We have in the northeastern part of India, we have evergreen rainforests. We have marshy areas or submerged marshy Sundarban forests. So anything that you ask for, we have reef, coral reef system, we have beaches, everything. So India is very diverse in the ecological level as well. Okay, some parts of India are very arid or dry. Some part will be too wet and will receive a very high amount of precipitation throughout the year. So that's what is called ecological diversity. So write down. Even at the ecosystem level, places like India there are other countries as well which are as rich as India in the biodiversity. They may or may not have all the components, but there also the richness is very high. Okay. Have a diverse kind of ecosystem. Okay. The example is deserts, grasslands or forests, grasslands, mangroves, as I said, coral reefs, and wetlands, and like just put etc. So a lot of things. Okay, so some countries have more diversity, some has less diversity. Okay, so that's called ecological diversity. So if you compare between ecological diversity of two countries, you can say that this country is more ecologically rich than this country because it has more ecosystems. When you compare at species diversity, you can say these two forests. So this forest is has more species diversity than this particular forest. And when you come to genetic diversity, you can say this species have lots of genetic diversity like rice as compared to mango. Mango also has a genetic diversity which is very high, but lower as compared to rice. But it could be greater as compared to, let's say, banyan trees diversity. Okay, is that clear? Make sense, people? Okay, now let me give you a perspective of this diversity on planet Earth as a whole. So yes. So if you look at this figure, this figure is from your textbook. Can you see this figure, everyone? Is it visible?
Yes.
So this is first about invertebrates, vertebrates, and then plants. The three major life forms, two animals, vertebrate animals, and plants. So I want you to look at this figure and prepare a 5 to 7, 8 line summary telling me what is this figure telling about. You can take the help of NCERT if you want, but I think it's a very, very self-explanatory figure. So what you see here, what is this kind of representation called? What is this called? When you represent something like this, what is it called? It's called a pie chart. Okay. So it's a pie chart representation. So you have to just make a summary right now. That is your in-class activity. So in ecological chapter, to decrease your dependency on learning and memorizing, just understand it as a whole. Okay. So let's start. Now your time starts now. I'm giving 5 minutes to make a summary where try to cover as much as you can, as much information as you can, but the rule is that you have to just do it in 5 to 8 sentences, not more than that. Okay, time starts now.
Are all the charts?
Yes, all the charts. And let me tell you, this pie chart is not about a country or any specific location or place. This is the whole global diversity. So write accordingly. And let me know you're done. So I'll give you 5 minutes stipulated, and then everyone has to tell me what they have written.
Sir, do we have to memorize this chart for exams?
No, you don't have to memorize this chart for exam, but what you're going to write here, this 5-minute activity will always stay in your head because you did this. So anything that comes related to this chart, you are prepared already. So if I give you dictations for this chart and ask you to memorize it, it will be a difficult thing. So I want you instead to summarize this chart and tell me on a global diversity of invertebrates, vertebrates, and plants together what you understand. Okay. How to read charts. What can happen is in exams, something like this, a chart can come talking about diversity of ant species in a particular area. And then you have to summarize the chart, kind of. So that's what you're doing right now. No need to remember these because there is no number to remember. These charts are not accurate charts. It's just a representation. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Do it. Let me know when you're done, people. So use use terms like, more than half, around 3/4, 70%, 50%. So as you can see, this is a pie chart that denotes 100%. So from this point to this point, if you see, it's around 50%. Okay. And this point is around 75%, right? Like this. So you can use this chart to use certain terms and explain things. And when I say just 5 to 8 sentences, you have to be concise, of course. That's the learning. How to write lots of information in a concise manner.
So 5 to 8 sentences for all the charts, right? Not for each chart, right?
Yes, not for each chart. 5 to 8 sentences for overall and defining global diversity.
Okay.
So probably just in 1 or 2 sentences, you have to wrap up if you're doing it differently. There are many ways to do it. So I just want you to do, and I want to listen to all your things, and then I'll tell how you could have summarized it better. Okay, so shall we begin? Done? Or you people need time?
Just a minute, sir.
Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, let's discuss people. So basically, in a nutshell, you are summing up this whole chapter. So things will become easier from here. Okay, so who would like to start? The one who starts has the least pressure, actually. Anyone who would like to start, or we can go in the order as I can see your names. Okay, so let's start with Lubna. Lubna, you're there? What is your summary? And please also take this as your class performance thing. So class participation or class performance thing. Are you there, Lubna? Okay. Oh no. So Lubna's mic is not working. Okay, I see. Okay, so Heba, what about you? So since these are 5 to 8 sentences, Lubna, you can also type it and send in the chat, right? By the time others are, because that's another way I can get to know how you have summarized it. Okay. Am I audible? Lubna, are you there? Okay, I think Lubna is having some issues with the internet. She's trying to reconnect. Okay, Hiba, in the meanwhile, Hiba, will you speak or will you type and send? Can you hear me, Hiba? Okay, I don't think she can hear me. Or... Okay, coming to Fatima. Are you there, Fatima? Am I audible? In general, am I audible, people?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I don't think. Okay, those who cannot speak, please type it and send if you care about it. Okay, coming to Rifat. Rifat and Atif are left. Rifat, would you like to speak up? What you have summarized?
Sir, it's not very detailed.
No, it's okay. Anyways, like it's just 5 to 8 sentences. So it does. The whole idea is it does not have to be very detailed. It just have to, in just a nutshell, try to package as much information as you can, because it's not possible to summarize the global diversity in detail. Forget about in one class, even in a month or in a year. So if you start writing about it, you're not going to be able to do that. But this pie chart is also a very, very broad representation. No detail is there in this pie chart. Okay, if you see there is a lot of detail, but if you see there is no concrete detail in this pie chart. So don't worry about that. Yes, so let's start.
So in vertebrates, majority of the portion is taken by insects.
In invertebrates, you mean? Okay, great.
Then second we have other animal groups,
Mhm.
and then very followed by very closely are molluscus, and the least one is crustaceans.
So what you remember now is that insect in invertebrates is almost around, 75 to 80%, correct?
Yes.
Because if you divide the pie chart into 4, it's 25% each. So you know that around 75 to 80% is just insects, right? In
Yes.
invertebrates, correct? That's the major take home from your point, which is extremely important and very good. Okay, continue.
In vertebrates, fishes take up 50% of the chart.
Mhm.
Then we have birds next.
Mhm. How do you decide it's a bird next and not reptiles? It's look like it looks a little bigger, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but a good way to package this information in just one sentence is that the highest number of species diversity in vertebrates is seen in fish, followed by birds and reptiles. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And mammals and amphibians are comparatively lesser in species diversity as compared to other vertebrates. So just 3 lines and everything is packed there. So you know that why amphibians are less, because it's obvious amphibians have to depend both on water and on land, and there is more area which is water. So fish is 70% of the earth is water, so you will find all kinds of fish flourishing in rivers, lakes, glaciers, and in oceans and seas. So of course in vertebrates almost half of the life has to be fish diversity. Amphibians, on the other hand, has to be slightly lesser than birds and reptiles because they need a specialized region where water is also available close to the land, correct? Which are relatively less, which makes their habitat a little constricted. So this is the logic, correct?
Yes.
And mammals, of course, which because they are the last highly evolved ones, and the diversity in mammals is lesser than birds and reptiles for obvious reason, because mammals are very big and most of the time they dominate the environment wherever they are. So the dominating species can't be so much in number, otherwise they will end up everything. Cool. Okay, continue.
Then in plants, fungi and angiosperms take us almost the majority.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have algae, which is then closely followed by mosses, ferns, annelids, and lichens, being almost similar.
Correct. So if you see in one way, in plants, you see the autotrophic family, algae, angiosperms. These two almost constitute more than half, right? Even ferns comes in autotrophs. So more than half is autotrophic. Even mosses are autotroph. Fungi is heterotrophic. So we have put fungi here in plants, but you know that fungi are not plants, right?
Yes.
What are they? They are a different kingdom. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. But we see, why do we see on one hand, so angiosperms is having a great species diversity, that is understood because they only need to take nutrient from the environment and they depend on the energy of the sun. Why do you think fungi is very high in number? Why not lichens and mosses are very high in number, but fungi is very high in number in global diversity? Let me tell you, the hint is in the last chapter. So fungi is in large number because remember I told you it is equally important for an ecosystem to decompose as it is important to produce, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So fungi are saprophytes, and they are one of the major decomposers of in the forests. Anything that fall down, these fungi, mushrooms grow over it and start decomposing that matter. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why their diversity is very high and it's understood. So very good. Good job done. I think Lubna has joined back. Lubna, are you able to speak now? Is your mic functional? Yes, no? I don't. She's not responding. Okay, let's go to Atif. Atif, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What are your points?
Yes, sir. So for invertebrates, first of all, insects make up more than half of the total number of invertebrates. Then crustaceans and mollusks make up about half of the invertebrates, excluding insects.
Excluding insects, okay.
Yes. Then for vertebrates, fishes make up about half of vertebrates. Then the second highest groups are birds and reptiles.
Correct. Again, you can also use like the feedbacks I was giving to I was giving to Rifat holds true for you as well. Okay. Continue.
Yes.
Yes, continue, Atif. You're mute if you're speaking.
Yes, sir. Then for plants, fungi and angiosperms, they occupy a huge majority.
Correct.
Yes, then like other organisms such as mosses, ferns, lichens, they only take up like a minor portion of the kingdom.
Yes, minor portion of this diversity. Okay.
Yeah,
diversity, global diversity. Now, I already told Rifat that why fungi and angiosperms are too high. We can understand the logic. Why lichens and mosses are too low? Because remember, lichens can only grow in conditions which are not polluted. Lichens are indicators of pollution, right? Environmental pollution. So with increasing urbanization and increasing cities and deforestations, lichen becomes less and less diverse. This is also a representation or a readout of the health of ecosystem in general. Okay, and they are symbiotic relationships. So the health and the availability of both the components, a fungal partner and an algal partner. So fungi and algae together make lichens, correct? So algae are very less as compared to fungi. So lichens will be the algae which make association with fungi. They will be even less. So the limiting factor here is algae to make lichens. And another limiting factor is pollution. Like there's lots of pollution now growing around, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So thank you, Rifat and Atif, for participating, and you really summarized, both of you summarized really well. Now, so having understood this diversity, what you need to know, which you already have incorporated well, is that of all the species on the planet, just write down a few points. So there are around, in globally, there are around 1.5 million reported species. This is a approximate reported species on Earth. But this is not all the species that we have figured out. And now who keeps the track that this is the number of recorded species or found species? So there is this organization which is known as IUCN, You know about IUCN? International Union for Conservation of Nature, okay, and Natural Resources. Write down. International Union. You must have read of IUPAC, right? There are rules given by IUPAC. So these are international unions formed by scientists and organizations that do research in the field. So they come up on the same platform to make certain rules to continue with that kind of a study, okay, and to share the knowledge, because one country is doing some study and keeping the knowledge to itself, then the other country will invest the same amount of energy to do the same study to know certain things. So science, that's why, is open, should be open, you know, and it should be sharing. So it's called International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. So regular reports by this organization keeps us informed about what is the condition of conservation and how much are we destroying or conserving the natural resources. So this is the reported, and it is estimated. When we estimate something, that that has to be on the basis of how fast we are finding the species, okay? So it's said that the Amazon, it's a report from Amazon. You know, all know about Amazon rainforests?
Yes.
Amazon rainforest. So the number of species that are coming out, we are finding. So scientists, you know, have not been able to reach to the interiors of Amazon rainforest yet. It's very difficult. It's a very huge, big. It's called the lung of the earth. So big, you can just see it from space. So the rate of new species identification from Amazon is, if you see it, it's around every week you can find a new species in Amazon, and they are finding it with that rate. So imagine if we can somehow explore the whole Amazon, we can estimate how much species we will find. So there is an estimate on the global level, including all the forests and all the regions of the planet. And the estimate is that there can be somewhere around 7 to 8 million species on Earth, out of which we have figured out 1.5 million species. Okay. Is that clear? And most of the species that we have found or reported, so are animals. So around 70% of the total, okay, are animals. So just to give you some context, out of 100, if 1.5 million is 100%, so 50% of that will be 0.75 million, correct? And 70% will be 70% will be somewhere around 0.95, 0.92 million, right? So out of 1.5 million, around 1 million are animals that we have reported. And from that 1 million animals, let's say, like 70% of those animals, that species that we have reported, is around is insects, around 70%. So you can understand that insects are not only 75 to 80% of the invertebrates. Overall, if you merge all of it together, still around 60 to 70% will be insects. So you can imagine how diverse the species richness, or species diversity of insects is, correct? Okay, is it clear? And some facts, some quick facts about India, that because it's CBSE, so India is a very big country, okay, in terms of land. So total land area of planet Earth. So how much do you think India shares? Land area. Like percent land area of India is around 2.5% only. Okay, the global land percentage is 2.5% only. Whereas in this 2.5% land, if you talk about the percent of this global species diversity that we have figured out, how much India contains, then it's about percent global species diversity in India is around 8%. Okay, so this is very impressive, right? 8% makes a major chunk. It's a major chunk, knowing that we have so many continents and so many countries. Correct? Okay, so about this, I'm not going to tell you a lot of facts. You just have to read and know it once. So all of you have NCERT with you right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you all come to page number? Let me figure out which is this page number. It's 261. Please come to page number 261. People. And read only the first para in 2 minutes. Okay. And tell me if you find any question there. Then we'll come to patterns of bio. So I'll be teaching you patterns of biodiversity. After this, I give you 2 minutes to read the first para. Okay, everyone. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Get myself some water. Okay. Okay, people. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just read the first para. Okay. Everything is clear, people? The paras? Yes. Any questions?
Yes.
No. Okay. So let me move forward and introduce, at least if we cannot complete this section, I will introduce to you some patterns that we have to study of biodiversity. Now, when I say patterns, we can It's not possible, just like, it's not possible to study all the individual species, 1.5 million species that we have figured out. So what we do, we classify them into different categories: kingdom, phylum, class, orders, and then we go study them on the basis of their similarities and dissimilarities. So in the same way, when we talk about biodiversity, because now we have to deal with multiple of these species living in the same ecosystem, it's again not possible to study in detail or even vaguely the interaction of each species with other species in a biodiversity, or how the biodiversity behaves as a whole. So what we do, we try to generalize some certain concepts that will work for all biodiversity. So certain rules that will work for all biodiversities. So let's begin with patterns of biodiversity. Okay. Now, when I say patterns, what I mean is the diversity of plants and animals on this planet it's not uniform. So it's not like you go from one place to another. You take any point on Earth, you move up or down, left or right, and you will see some uniformity. It's very, very pocketed, which means it's very, very patchy. Some areas have very high species diversity, whereas other areas you will see for miles and miles there it seems lifeless. There is no life for that matter, because the environment there is not capable of flourishing or surviving or supporting species diversity. But you will still find some kind of life adapting to that extreme environment, but they will be just a few, one or two or a few handful of organisms. So when there is no uniformity throughout the planet, but it's uneven for groups. So what we do is we study it through latitudes, latitudinal gradient. Now you know that this is planet Earth, let's say, and it is slightly tilted on its axis, right? It's not exact, it's slightly tilted like this. And this tilt is 23.5 degrees, as you must have studied in your geography classes, correct? So this is the North Pole and this is the South Pole, right? And from the center goes your line, which is known as equator. Now there are two such lines below and above equator, which are called the tropic line. One is Tropic of Cancer and another is Tropic of Capricorn. You know which one is Tropic of Cancer and which one is Tropic of Capricorn, people? No? Okay, where are we situated currently? If this is equator, this is the poles. Where are you? Do you know your position on Earth right now?
It's near the equator.
Near the equator? On which side? If you are near, then you must be, so this is the northern hemisphere. Okay. And this is the southern hemisphere. So where are you? North or south?
Along the mountain.
Sorry? Northern hemisphere near the equator. So you can say you are between the tropic line. So which line is this? Tropic of Cancer or Tropic of Capricorn?
But I think Tropic of Cancer.
Tropic of Cancer. Yes, do you think? You're sure? You don't have to think about it, right? These are just 101.
I can't hear you.
Hello, am I audible? Am I audible? Is my network unstable? No,
So now you're audible.
Okay, great. Yes, so the line that passes through India. So India is somewhere here, right? This. It's exactly V-shaped from the bottom, so I can make it. So this line is called Tropic of Cancer. And this one is Tropic of Capricorn. Okay. So between these lines, this is the tropical region of Earth. And between the poles, this is the temperate region. Okay, so there are two temperate regions which are isolated in northern and southern hemisphere, and the tropical region which is equally on the north and equally on the south of equator. And then obviously there is the equatorial belt, which is the hottest region of the planet, right? So based on these features, from away from equator, we see that there is a pattern of biodiversity that is seen. Okay, whether you are in the southern hemisphere or in the northern hemisphere, life follows a pattern with respect to latitudes. So these are called latitudes, right? This tropic lines, equator lines, and all these lines which go in the horizontal manner are called latitudes. The vertical lines are called longitudes. What are longitudes used for? It's a network, it's a web of latitude and longitude. You can pin down any position on Earth with the degree of latitude and longitude, correct? That's how we call it coordinates. If you have to tell where is something situated on planet Earth, you can tell its coordinate and it will be exactly the place on the Earth. So latitudes can be used to study patterns of biodiversity. What are longitudes useful for? Something which is very, very common in our life, day-to-day life.
Determining time zones.
Exactly. So longitudes are to study or to make time zones. Okay. Perfect. Very good. Now, so write down first thing, or I will not be able to finish it. So I'm just giving you a brief outlook. We'll start this in the next class and we'll finish. So what we are going to study here is how does the latitudinal gradient or latitudinal effect helps us to study the patterns of biodiversity on planet. This makes things easier for us to study. Apart from that, we're going to study a species to area relationship. These two are important concepts of this chapter that we have to do in the next class. And then we'll come to loss of diversity and what we can do to prevent that loss, which is called conservation. Okay, so that will be the third and the last part. So in the next class, I will be talking about patterns of biodiversity, and I'll be talking about loss of biodiversity and its reasons. Okay, so please come a little prepared, read a little bit, and make sure your microphones are working so